on SAP CRM is because now I don't really have to talk to you what SAP basically is and what are all the wonderful things you can do in SAP. Let us go straight into ABAP. ABAP basically stands for Advanced Business Application Programming. Okay, so it's basically a fourth generation language. ABAP by 4 that you see is basically a 4GL. It's a fourth generation language. It's a high level language. Okay, and that's going to put it. ABAP is a fourth generation. It's a fourth generation procedural language. Okay, it's a procedural programming language. It's a simple, straightforward procedural programming language. Okay, though we use the term advanced and all, the advance is not the complexity of the language, but the advance is basically in the features the language has. Okay, so it's a simple, straightforward procedural programming language. It has only one core purpose or one sole purpose, that is to design and build business applications or design or focus on business programming. Okay, outside of business programming, we do not do anything much with ABAP as a programming language. So it's not a very flexible programming language. It's a programming language which is used within the limits of SAP. Okay. So as long as you are working on products from SAP, you are working on ABAP. So if you look at SAP, as you are very well aware, it's basically a company which releases in the market or which comes into the market with n number of ERP solutions. ECC is its core ERP solution, and apart from ECC, it has multiple peripheral solutions provided to help organizations to run their businesses smoothly. So any product coming from the SAP basket is primarily focused on business solutions. Okay, they provide business solutions. So ABAP as a programming language is the core business programming language for any of these systems. Okay, so irrespective of whether you are working in ECC or you are working on CRM, ABAP is the core programming language. There is no variation. There is no difference between them. Okay. So ABAP is going to be used as a programming language to write the business process logic, to write any kind of business solution, any kind of business application. Okay, so that is the idea out there. Okay, and as far as ABAP is concerned, it's a simple, straightforward procedural programming language. Now that is how ABAP began, or that is how it started off. ABAP started off as a simple, straightforward procedural programming language, but over the years, ABAP has evolved. It has evolved, and now we also have something called as ABAP, which is nothing but your object-oriented ABAP. Okay, object-oriented. Okay, object-oriented ABAP. Object-oriented ABAP primer is basically nothing much different from your basic ABAP. It is only thing that it will support your object-oriented syntaxes. Okay, object-oriented programming is a style of programming. It's a complete shift, paradigm shift from how we write procedural programs. Okay, procedural program has a particular style of writing, and object-oriented programming has a particular style of writing. Now, if you look at Java or C++, these are all typical object-oriented programming languages. Okay, these are programming languages which purely support object-oriented style of writing programs. Okay, so today if you look at programming languages around, everything has moved to object-oriented. That is the reason why SAP also went in for object-oriented ABAP. Okay, the world around SAP has become all object-oriented. And when we want to write complex programming, object-oriented style of writing is always better. Okay, object-oriented programming basically evolved and became popular when window-based applications evolved. Okay, window-based programming evolved. So even if you look at SAP, if you look at the SAP interfaces of its initial days, it was very text-driven or a very simple, straightforward look and feel it used to have. Even today, if you look at SAP, SAP's interfaces are what I always say is single dimensional. It always has a standard look and feel. You take any transaction, any application, any system, they have that very standard look and feel. There's no creativity on its screen-based environment. So to bring about that change, that is where object-oriented really helps you. Okay, if you look at your CRM system and compare it with ECC, you can see CRM system, the windows, the interfaces are far more user active or interactive. You can have features like drag and drop, and okay, you have hierarchical tree displays. The window is more interactive to the user. That is not the case with earlier versions of ECC. If you see, they are very blunt. You will have one or two buttons and all in boxes to enter the values. It was not very reactive to the user. So to bring about these kind of features into your application, you need to have some complex style of programming. You need to have programming which can support that style of writing. So that is where your object-oriented programming comes in handy. If you are like as you said, you are already working on SAP CRM. If you look at SAP CRM, the ABAP part of SAP CRM technical as what we say, primarily focuses on object-oriented ABAP. Okay, the expectation is when you move into CRM technical, the expectation is you should already be an ABAP consultant or should know ABAP programming language, and then you migrate into object-oriented programming and
just a
focus
question.
specifically on the UI-based or web-based designing that is very popular with CRM. Okay, but your fundamentals remain the same. The ABAP programming remains the same. So when we deal with object-oriented ABAP, the idea remains the same. Your ABAP is very much in place. It's the same ABAP that you are going to use. The only thing is the style of writing changes. Instead of using procedural style of writing, you will use object-oriented style of writing. Okay, you will use all classes and methods and that style of writing. Okay, so that is where you have your object-oriented ABAP. So when we are, as part of our training, we will primarily focus on ABAP on the procedural front, and we will have almost 5 to 6 sessions on object-oriented programming, where we'll move into object-oriented programming and see what are all the wonderful object-oriented features that have been introduced into ECC, how we use them, how they work, how they help us to build applications using classes and objects, all those things. Okay. So ECC, though, is the old system which uses a lot of procedural programming. It has embraced OOPS style of program. A lot of new things have been introduced. Okay. And SAP is slowly introducing. It is wrapping up all the old procedural things by classes and methods, and it's wrapping it up. So slowly SAP is moving. So ECC is a very old system, already set up. A lot of things out there running perfectly, running very smoothly. So nobody wants to disturb it. So slowly. But the new systems are all more object-oriented in nature. Okay? They have a lot of object-oriented features and coding style that has been introduced or used. Okay. Now as we know, ABAP as a procedural language, if you take, what I always say is anybody who knows basic C programming language, simple C programming language, and anybody who understands SQL programming can comfortably write programs in ABAP. Okay, if you are comfortable with basic C programming and you are comfortable with SQL, okay, structured query language, then you already know ABAP. Okay, you don't have to be taught ABAP. You just have to be taught what are the syntaxes and other style of writing the programs. That's all. You already know ABAP. Okay, because it's more or less the same common kind of syntaxes and styles of writing the program. Okay, But SQL you should be aware of. Now when we are planning to move into ABAP, what I always say is your training involves two major areas. One is the first part of your ABAP training focuses on the syntax and semantics of the language. You are trying to learn the language, you are trying to understand what is its syntax. We are spending time and energy on focusing on what are all the primary keywords, what does the language provide, what is its capabilities, how do you write a program, how do you compile, execute, and all blah blah blah. So what is the capabilities of the language? Okay, so what are the operators it supports, what can it do, what are all the various syntaxes it supports. This is what we will be focusing on. We'll try to understand what ABAP is capable of, what are the things that you can do in ABAP, how you can do it in ABAP. That is the first part of the ABAP training. So normally when we are learning any programming language, that is all that we learn. We learn the language, we learn the syntaxes of the language, we learn the grammar or the semantics of the language, how do we go about doing work in that particular programming language. So beyond that, it is left up to the imagination of the programmer to develop and build whatever they want. So once you have learned the C programming or once you have learned the Java programming, what do you learn? You learn what does Java support, what are the syntaxes of Java, what are the various styles of writing, what are the n number of standard Java classes that SAP has provided, what is the features of functionality of these classes. Once you have known that, it is left up to you as to what you would like to do with this knowledge. But when it comes to ABAP, we are going to use ABAP in a very specific framework called SAP. Right? ABAP does not have existence. ABAP does not have an existence outside of the framework called SAP. Okay, whatever you do in ABAP, it has to be applied into the SAP products only. You cannot apply it to anything else. You cannot use ABAP as a programming language to build operating systems, or ABAP as a programming language to design some video games or something. It's not capable of it. It's not neither capable nor suitable. ABAP is suitable only to be used within the framework of SAP to work with RISEF objects. Okay, to work with RISEF objects, nothing outside of RISEF objects. Nothing outside of RISEF objects can be done, or we use ABAP for working with these kind of objects. What is RISEF objects? Have you heard of this word called RISEF?
Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Left long.
Hello?
Have you heard of this? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
I think I have some problem with the headphones. I was just talking. Yeah, I know the RISEF objects. Yes, very well.
Oh, perfect. So RISEF is the primary activity that you do with ABAP. So what is it? R. You can type.
Interfaces, conversion, enhancement, and forms.
What is R? Interface type.
Reports.
Reports. Okay, so reports,
Interfaces, conversions, enhancements, and forms.
Okay. Reports, interfaces, conversion, enhancements, and forms. That is what RISEF basically stands for. It is termed as RISEF. Some people term it as FRICE. FRICE also. Some people, if they bring it in beginning. So RISEF is the most popular term.
Even some people call it RISEF W, RICE, because they have workflows as well.
Yes, RISEF W is where we introduce workflow also into it. RISEF W we have. Okay, wherein workflow components are also introduced. Okay. So RISEF is the primary area which we will be focusing on. RISEF is the primary area. where we will be looking at how we can apply the knowledge of ABAP to design. I think.
Okay, I want to interrupt here.
Uh-huh.
These workflows, they are required to be configured and then we write program for that, or it is just completely program based?
No, it is configurable as well as program based. Both are there. In a workflows, the standard workflows are configurable elements. But
Okay.
when you wanted to introduce a certain additional trigger mechanism,
Okay.
okay, that is when you code it. You code additional triggering event or code an additional task and make the triggering work.
Just a simple example, like we have a quotation which needs to be approved by our business users, like VP and RSM, something like that, right? So is it a standard functionality in SAP, like we just configured those workflows, or we have to write code for this approval process?
It is a standard functionality. What you are talking of is a standard functionality available
Okay.
in MM. Okay. Purchase release workflows are there. Standard workflow is there. You can just assign users and their roles to the workflow configuration, and it will work. Standard workflows are there. So that is what I'm trying to say. Standard workflows are there for all standard business scenarios. So we can either use a standard workflow as it is. So the business functionality is limited to, and the triggering mechanism is limited to whatever SAP has defined. Most of the time what happens is we use these standard workflows, we use these standard mechanisms, but we try to introduce additional changes in the form of additional triggering mechanism or additional conditional checks that we want to introduce. So you add in new tasks or you add in new events into the standard. You copy the standard and add in these things and you run it that way. Okay.
Yeah, I get your point.
Okay. So your okay, but one thing that I would like to highlight here is like when you talk of workflow is a separate training that you have to attend. Okay? As part of your ABAP, basically we focus on two areas. One is ABAP and another is cross applications. So your ABAP training primarily revolves workflow. We can only have some introduction and classes and all. But if you are looking for in detail workflow training, I think you will have to take like SAP CRM technical is there, which focuses in detail on using OOPS and ABAP and how you work with it. Same way, workflow is also a component that has to be learned in detail. It's a 3-week session which you can attend. For workflow, specifically for workflow, but you have to be comfortable with ABAP before you venture into workflow or venture into CRM technical and all. Okay. So coming back to what we were discussing, as I said, the first part of ABAP focuses on syntaxes and semantics, and the second part of ABAP training will focus on working with the RISEF components. Okay, working with the RISEF components, which will help us to design and develop applications suitable for ABAP and SAP environment. So when we tomorrow say that I know ABAP programming, we primarily focus on, or anybody who is interviewing you, they will also focus on what is your expertise on the RISEF objects. Are you comfortable with reports? Are you comfortable with data migration? So are you comfortable with enhancements? That is what they will be asking or they will be looking at. So, reports, everybody knows what reports are. Reports is basically to pull out the data within the system and generate report outputs. Okay, we have simple standard reports, we have ALV reports, so many different type of reports. So how these reports are built, what are the primary actions that we have to remember when designing reports, how we can design good looking reports, how we can design interactive reports, drill down reports. That is what we focus with. Then you have interfaces and conversions. Interfaces and conversions basically form a part of your data migration. So we have interface programs, conversion programs. How do we write that? How do we handle? How is file handling done? Okay, how do you read contents from the file, process it, utilize it for uploading data into SAP. What are the different techniques to upload the data into SAP? Some simple techniques like BDC to WAPs to iDocs, how we can use LS&W as a tool to upload the data into SAP. Okay. That is what we primarily focus there. As part of interfaces, okay, actually we discuss it as cross applications. But what I personally say is cross application primarily revolves around most of interface components. So when you want to go in for real-time interfacing using iDocs, how do you use iDocs? How do you configure your system for using iDocs? What are the various things that we have to look for when we are dealing with iDocs? Okay, how they work, how they post the data, how they push the data. That's what we have to focus on. Enhancements. Enhancements are basically methodologies provided by SAP to enhance the standard SAP functionality. You can add in additional coding or introduce additional changes into the SAP system using enhancements. Okay, so that's the idea of enhancements. Starting from user exits, SAP has evolved in enhancements also. So starting all the way from user exit to customer exit to what else we have, business add-ins and BTs, and there are so many different methods of enhancing the standard SAP applications. So we'll try to look up on most of the popular enhancement techniques, how they are used, how do we work them or work with them, what are the key things to remember when dealing with enhancements. Then you have forms. Forms are basically your business document templates, the printout that is generated out of any business transaction. That is nothing but your forms. Okay, so we have different techniques, or we have different methods to design forms. Starting with something like SAP script. Okay, so SAP script is one of the most oldest and the most popular methods to design forms. Whenever you want to design form or form-based applications, the best tool that we have is your SAP scripts. So after that, SAP has evolved and it has gone in for smart forms. Smart form is very popular to design your form layouts. Whether you are using SAP scripts or you are using smart forms, we primarily focus on designing the business document templates. That's the fundamental purpose of forms. Okay, you can say forms are like a word processing tool provided by SAP. It's like a word processing tool which SAP has designed or SAP has provided, which helps us to design templates, design layouts for business documents. Okay. Business documents are nothing but any kind of transaction would result in generation of a business document. I do a sales order, or I create a purchase order, or I do invoicing. All these actions results in an output, results in a printout. So if you are generating your output as a printout, you can make use of forms. Okay, the challenge with report programming is that reports will always display data in rows and columns. Okay, the report data would always be in rows and columns. You cannot play anything further in a report environment. But with forms, you can scatter your information across the page. Okay, introduce formatting options, introduce different fonts, style of writing, introduce different text, introduce some logos and all those kind of things in your form, which is not possible with reports. That is the reason why we need to have forms when you go in for these kind of outputs. Okay. So that is what we will be doing as part of our ABAP training. We will start off. Okay, actually, I would have spent some time on SAP, but for somebody like you, meaning in talking what SAP is and what SAP is capable of and all those kind of things, you are very much aware of what SAP is and what kind of products SAP has in the market, right?
Yeah, I know all this.
So coming to ABAP, so as you have told me, you have worked earlier on Java, you have worked earlier on other programming environment. So picking up ABAP should not be a challenge. It should be pretty straightforward. Okay, you will not, even ABAP also will be comfortable for you because you have worked in Java environment. Okay, you understand what object-oriented programming is. You just have to brush up what we have done long back. So what I would suggest is that once you are done with ABAP, you should you should sincerely think of checking out with CRM technical also, because you have been working on CRM for quite some time. Being a CRM technical consultant would really be helpful. So CRM technical launches off from this point actually. Remaining all remains the same. You pick up.
Yeah. So will there be a separate training for this object-oriented ABAP?
For object-oriented ABAP, we will cover around 1 week, max 4-5 sessions. We will have for object-oriented ABAP, primarily focusing on what are the object-oriented features or what are the object-oriented style of coding that has been introduced into your normal ABAP ECC environment. Okay, like simple example, business add-ins. Business add-in is a typical case of object-oriented programming. It uses the concepts of OOPS. Business add-in cannot work without using the concepts of OOPS. Business objects are there. And ALV using object-oriented programming.
So if someone says that I am a ABAP consultant or I am object-oriented ABAP consultant, so is there any difference in that?
The expectation changes. If you say you are an ABAP consultant, the expectation is that you are more focused in this way. If you say you know object-oriented programming also, then the expectation changes. The expectation is that you know to write and design and develop object-oriented syntaxes also in ABAP programming. Okay, so they specifically ask for it. Are you comfortable? Because see, the first point is understanding object-oriented paradigm. What is object-oriented programming? What do you mean by object-oriented programming? How do you write object-oriented programming? What are the things you should have in your mind when you are writing object-oriented programming? So you have to be comfortable in that. What is an object? What is a class? What is inheritance? What is polymorphism? How do you achieve them? What are the possibilities of inheriting? What are the capabilities of OOABAP? What are the limitations of OOABAP? How do you apply it onto a certain business case or onto a certain scenario? So you have to be aware of it. So they specifically ask, you can check out for requirements. So nowadays they ask like you should be comfortable with ABAP as well as object-oriented ABAP. Expectation has increased now. There was a time when if you knew only report programming, that was enough. But now things have changed.
Oh yeah, even if you just know what is SAP, people were hiring like, just come or we will just, teach you. But these days, oh my God.
Yeah, so
they have a lot of expectations. A person who should know, who is functional, even he should have a knowledge of technical stuff as well. Exactly. I mean, it is really getting tough these days. SAP is really getting, tough.
Yeah, exactly.
I know some of my friends, they are just trying to, get into SAP, but it's more than 3 months now, they are not getting any projects or anything. Even they are getting interview calls, but they are not able to clear that.
Yeah. So that is the challenge that we face actually. So technical guys have to become comfortable with functional areas. New areas of technologies are coming in, and your expectation is to be becoming comfortable on those areas. So it is there. So those challenges are there. So that is where your expertise on these areas and how well you pick up these areas. So there will be no much difference. When we say object-oriented ABAP, it is nothing big or nothing different from your normal ABAP programming. It's the same thing. But the point is, you should understand what is object-oriented. What do you mean by object?
So the difference is the concept.
Exactly. The difference is the concept. It is not something, difference like earth and sky. Nothing like that. The idea is, are you comfortable with object-oriented programming? Can you think in object-oriented style and write programs? So that is what makes the difference. Now, with great difficulty, we have learned how to write programs in procedural language, and then suddenly one day you have to shift it to object-oriented. So then it is difficult. That is why I always say you should be a programmer first. ABAP and all will come later on. First thing is, are you a programmer? Given a problem, can you think of a solution for that particular program in a programming style? Okay.
Yeah, because every programming language, they have the same base. I mean, not every, but yeah, most of them. So if your base is not clear, then it's difficult to understand.
Exactly. Every programming language is used. You take any programming language, it is used to interact with the system and make it do something.
Yeah.
So what you want to do should be clear in your mind. A problem in hand is what you want to do. I want to find the factorial of a number. So I give a number to the system should do something and give me back the factorial of a number. So how to find the factorial of a number, that is the logic, that is your programming capability. To write it and interact with the system, I can use ABAP, or I can use C, or I can use Java, or I can use Pascal. I can use any language to interact with the system to find the factorial of a number. But if you do not know how to get the factorial of a number, knowing any language is waste. Okay, you know ABAP programming, but you do not know how to find factorial of a number, then you will not be able to achieve or get the result. So that is the crux.
Yeah.
Crux is, are you comfortable writing programs? Given a problem in hand, can you think logically and come up with a solution? Once that logical thinking is there, once that step-by-step approach of solving a given problem is there, then you can write it in any language, any style of programming, whether it is procedural or object-oriented or whatever it is. So that is the idea. So we have tuned our mind all these years to write programs line by line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Object-oriented comes in and says, no, you don't write like this. You write 1, 3, 4 in one box, 1, 2 in another box, and then 5, 6 in another box, and then write 1.1 and 1.2, which reads from all these boxes. So the style of writing changes. So are we ready to think that way and write? If you are ready, you are already there. It's all about learning the concept. What is inheritance? What is polymorphism? What is this? What is that? That's all. Okay, so that is what is your basics. That is what is. You have to be programmer first, then programming.
Yeah. So if we just talk about simple ABAP, right? So there will be no concepts like this polymorphism, inheritance, right? Encapsulation.
They are purely object-oriented concepts. They are not topics, or they are not concepts that revolve around in procedural programming. All those concepts are very purely object-oriented.
Object-oriented, yeah.
Okay, so does ABAP support it? Yes, ABAP supports it. So from SAP 5.0 onwards, SAP has introduced object-oriented ABAP in the ECC environment also. So you can work with them if you are working on any new or latest system. You can work with ABAP just like you work with the procedural environment. You can write the syntax. You need to know its syntaxes and semantics. Okay, but you can write it. How to write a class, how to define a class, how to use a class, all these things. Okay. Now, what I always say is even using object-oriented ABAP, you are not going to develop anything outside of this. Are you understanding?
Yeah.
So the core of the programming revolves around RISEF only. Using object-oriented ABAP also, you are not going to write some new stories or something new in SAP environment. You will still be developing report interface.
Basically, there are always enhancements, like in every project. So
exactly.
So we will be working on enhancements. Just like we have like close to 45 enhancements in our system. And I was thinking like, if I know ABAP, then I can, make more money now. Because the expectations are different now.
Yeah, exactly.
Before, what happens was functional consultant is working on functional side and technical is on coding side. But now they expect, one person to do everything. That is how the market is now.
Yeah, exactly. That is true. Okay, so that is where we stand, Yugandhi. Okay. So this is what we will primarily be focusing on. We have around, the planned idea is to have around 45-50 sessions maximum, during which we will be covering those topics. Okay.
So is it like a weekday class or we will be having class on weekends?
Till Saturday you have. That is, no, 1 minute. Friday evening is Saturday one. Yeah, Monday to Friday we will have. If suppose we are not able to cover or we need to hurry up or there is any constraints on our time that we are facing, then we will have it on weekends. Otherwise, we will have the 5 days starting from Monday to Friday. Because at least, see, what happens is once we get into the momentum of the training, the topics will be covering, will be going on pretty fast. So you guys need to catch up on it, train yourself, practice yourself on whatever we are discussing, learning. Otherwise, the gap between what you know and what you have practiced and what is going on in this class would increase drastically, and then you'll start losing interest. So that should not happen. Parallelly, you should be practicing whatever you are learning.
Yeah, that's true. Practice makes a man perfect, right?
Okay, so that is because see, when you listen, you're listening to me. I have been working on ABAP for a long time. So you're listening to me and you're looking at what I'm doing. You will see and you will get a feel that, oh, okay, it is pretty comfortable, we can do it. But when we actually sit on the system and do it, we may have 120 questions coming in our mind. Right. Okay, so you need to be parallelly practicing so that you can bring back these questions, discuss on them.